Alright, sup bazingers. Today, what I am going to be doing is a tier list ranking of every Crash game released in Japan. This totally was an original idea that I totally didn't rip off Rico off of it or anything. Totally not. But in all seriousness, though, I did kind of like, I kind of got the idea from that. It's just like, fuck it, might as well do the same thing just because it just kind of interests me, you know? I've never really had a definitive list for this sort of shit. And honestly, I still don't. Like, even when I'm recording now, I'm just going to be playing this by ear. But, I don't know, the idea of just ranking every game in my favorite franchise of all time as just really... It's a really interesting concept that I, for whatever reason, haven't really got around to doing until now. So, basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be putting all these fucking things right here in one of these four categories. And, yeah. Obviously I have... Well, a lot of these games I have like a decent amount of experience with. So, I'll be going into detail explaining why I put said game in like said category and why I chose one game over another or whatever, like that kind of thing. I'll be going into detail about that. So, I guess before I start, I'll just give a quick shout out to Titans and Mutant, which aren't here, obviously. They weren't released in Japan. Don't have too much experience with either game. I kind of grew up playing the Wii versions. Well, I mean, grew up. I didn't play much of them because I didn't really like them at the time. And honestly, I don't think my opinion on those would have changed or will change even if I like revisited them for whatever reason. And like I feel like there isn't really any reason to. It was a very weird time in Crash's history that like which a big part of me kind of wants to honestly forget exists. And that might sound kind of harsh, but I don't know, I just did not like the Titans games at all from what little I played of them back then. And this is when I was a kid, and like, like, my standards for shit were really fucking low back then, so... For me not to like them back then, that kind of like says a lot. But yeah, I hated the art style, and I still do. I just can't stand the art style of the Titans games. Especially with like the whole tattoo kind of shit that Crash was doing back then. I feel like Mutant kind of like slightly improved it, but not really, you know? I just couldn't stand that, and I don't know, just the whole beat 'em up thing just didn't suit Crash, really. And I know a lot of people have said this, but like, I feel like, again, as a standalone game, I feel like Titans, at least, would have been at best okay if it was like its own IP or something. But considering it wasn't, then you know, I just don't like it. And I've heard Mutant, like My Name for Mutant has like a shit ton of backtracking as well, like an obnoxious amount. So I haven't really played enough of that to even like really reach that point, but you know, I guess I'll rank Titans above Mutant because of that, I guess. I don't know. And I was just talking about like console versions. If we're going into like handheld territory, I know I'm not gonna really be talking about like mobile games like Mutant Island and like Twins Mobile or whatever. Like I have don't know really much of anything about those aside from like they exist basically. So, um, yeah. But the handheld versions of uh, Titans and Mind of a Mutant, I've heard really shit things about, and I've seen them and they look pretty awful, with the exception of Titans DS. I actually have that sitting on my shelf. I haven't really played it, so I don't know. I've heard alright things about that. So there's that, I guess. I don't know. There's not really much I can say about them because I've never really played them at all. And I'll also give a shout out to the two racing games on iOS, Crash Bandicoot Nitro Kart 3D, and its sequel, Crash Bandicoot Nitro Kart 3D 2. I can't remember if the 3D was in the subtitle for that one, but yeah, I played those quite a bit when I was a kid, actually. And I remember, well, for mobile standards, they're, like, honestly pretty decent. Like, I remember, like, having, like, a pretty fun time. I mean, you can't really play them anymore. They're, like, fucking dead, basically. I remember, I want to say, like, not super long ago, I tried playing, like, the first game, and it literally just crashed in the tutorial every time, so, yeah. And obviously they're no longer on, like, the App Store or anything, so, yeah, they're basically just relics of the past at this point. But I had fun with them. I also remember in, like, the second game, like, where I remember doing this out of bounds glitch and thinking it was, like, the coolest thing ever at the time. And, like, I don't think I've seen, like, any footage of that on YouTube. So, yeah, that's something I did then. Fun fact, I guess. I think it was on, like, the first, like, level. Also, Yeah Panda was a pretty cool character, so at least we got that out of the mobile games. And she makes a pretty nifty return in NF, so that's pretty cool. But we'll get to that in due time. Now, I guess with that out of the way. Oh, and also, the Tiger game. I'm going to be honest, I didn't even know that existed until like a few weeks ago. When people were going on about like Mr. Crumb and shit like that. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. It's a Tiger game, it's probably terrible. So, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that out of the way, let's start the actual rankings. And first, I know I said I didn't really have an idea of what I was actually ranking. Like, I know I said, like, I'm going to be ranking this as I go along, but one game that I know is going to be terrible, and yes, I'm going to be starting this from the bottom and working my way up, is Boom Bang. Jesus. What the fuck even was this? Like, basically, like, I know, like, party games are basically, like, referred to as fucking Mario Party clones, but this is, like, literally a Mario Party clone. It sucked. I only played it for, like, I want to say 10-15 minutes when this came out. Well, when it first came out back in, what, like, 2006 or something like that? Or 7 or whatever, I can't remember, but yeah, it's shit. I remember its OS music in particular being pretty fucking garbage, like, Jesus Christ. And just everything about it, just, like, you know, the designs of the characters. You'd think, me being, you know, the Japanese guy, I'd like them, but no, they're pretty awful. Considering the fact that this was the only game developed in Japan, like, you'd think that would have been awesome, but no, it was absolutely terrible. And just the whole format. Again, I don't have much experience with this game, and honestly, this is one of those games where, like, you don't need to play it to know it's shit. Like, you just take one look at it, spend like 30 seconds looking at gameplay footage on YouTube or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I don't know what else is there to really say. I don't even have that much experience with it. All the mini games were like stupid. Like, I remember there was this one where you were like riding fucking horses or something, and it's just like, why? Like, why is that a thing that exists? It's just like, yeah, no, it sucks. Yeah, I'm done talking about Boom Bang. We can just pretend it doesn't fucking exist. Anyways, next game. Out of everything here. Also, an annoying thing about the fucking tier maker website, like, you can only have one kind of, like, layout for all the images you have here, so, like, you can only either have them all be square or all of them be horizontal or all of them be, like, horizontal or something like that, which I find kind of annoying because all the Crash box arts are, like, kind of varying. Like, the PS1 boxes are, like, square, and, like, the PS2 ones are horizontal, then Japanese GBA ones are, like, horizontal. And it's just like, yeah, kind of wish you could have all of them at once, but whatever, honestly. Now, for every other game I'm going to be putting on here, these are games I actually, like, I know these are, like, we're getting into, like, shit opinion territory here, but, basically, I do get a pretty decent amount of enjoyment from all these games that I'm going to be putting in. Like, which I guess is why I kind of like this franchise so much, is because I can get enjoyment out of so many of the games that are in said franchise, you know? So, that being said, next I'm going to put Crash Purple. This is kind of an interesting one, really. It was the first game where, like, Crash and Spyro were, like, actually in it together. Its plot was kind of fucking stupid, though. Like, you have fucking cardboard cutouts of, like, Norks or whatever. It's just, like, really. And the whole, like, thing at the beginning where, like, they try to, like, turn Spyro and like, Cortex and Ripto tried to turn Spyro and Crash against each other. And they did, like, the shittiest job of doing that. I don't know. I mean, you shouldn't really be taking plots of Crash games, like, seriously, but even still, that was just fucking retarded, honestly. But if we're talking about the actual game, I mean, it was very hit or miss. Like, the collecting cards thing was okay. Like, it was kind of interesting to, like, explore, like, the kind of hub worlds on GBA. I guess. It was kind of bare bones, mind you, but it's something. Some of the mini games I actually enjoyed, like the platforming ones where you had to get to the end in a certain amount of time, or getting all the boxes to get the gem. Those were pretty good. Kind of like speedrunning almost, in a way. And also, shout outs to the pants. The pant crates being like the most hilarious thing ever. All they do is just change the color of Crash's pants for the remainder of the stage. It's just like, I don't know. I just kind of find it hilarious. But, yeah. And like the river one was like pretty decent. And there was a few others I don't really remember much, but at least this game didn't pull like a Spyro Orange where like you didn't have to play every game 3 fucking times to like reach the end. And I know there's like a trick to like avoid doing that as of somewhat recently. I don't know much about it. All I know is that that it exists, but even still, like that's just stupid. That's just stupid. But back to actually talking about fucking Crash Purple instead of Spyro Orange. Um, I think the main problem here is that I feel like it disappointed a lot of people because, like, like Crash and Spyro, they were like basically brother and sister franchise, like ever since like Crash 3, really, when Spyro 1 came out though. They even had like demos of each of their games in each other, except for like Japanese Bash, because Japanese Spyro 3 was never a thing. And I think the fact that their first ever like and only like proper, with the exception of like Spyro being in like NF and seeing KGB and stuff like that. I'm talking about like a full-fledged proper game in where Crash and Spyro had a proper crossover, was in a mini game collection. And I feel like that is what disappointed a lot of people. And granted, I feel like I actually kind of enjoy like a decent amount of mini games in Crash Purple. But I feel like they should have just had a platforming adventure together on like a home console first, before going and experimenting with something like this. I feel like they kind of jumped the gun a bit. And I feel like that's why a lot of people are kind of like sour towards this game, is because of that. And again, like if you're talking about my personal opinion, like I think like it's not the best thing ever, but I kind of like it for what it is. But again, they could have done more with it. And the fact that like a lot of it kind of has the same problem that Bash does to an extent, in where a lot of the like mini games like repeat. And again, like I said, I like a lot of them, but like I feel like a bit more variety in that department wouldn't have like hurt. And then you just had some like really stupid mini games, like the one where you just have those handlebars, all those weights or whatever, and you just fucking spam X, and you just win. It's just like, what's the point of that? I mean, or you really get a card out of it, but it's just like, stuff like that. And that one game where you're controlling that like RC copter or whatever, and you have to shoot all those flying drones, like that was just a pain in the ass, honestly. Like I never liked those ones, but I don't know. I have very mixed feelings on this, but I can get a decent amount of enjoyment out of it. So I guess we'll just leave it there. Okay. Next game, I'm gonna put on good tier, is okay. Sort of a tough one, actually. Much as I hate to do this, I think I'm gonna have to put Bash here. I don't hate Bash. A lot of people don't like Bash. I think it's not the greatest thing ever, but I feel like for what it was trying to do, I feel like it did an alright job. I enjoyed like a lot of the mini games it had to do. It had like the crate throwing one, and ballistics, and Like the pogo ones were like pretty good, except for pogo padlock. Like that was kind of shit. Especially the crystal. Like fuck the crystal on that. And yeah, I really liked like a lot of the mini games. Like with a possible exception being like the polar ones, which I don't know, I didn't really like those that much personally. Like they kind of got a bit painful. And the tank ones were like pretty alright, although kind of a mixed bag in terms of quality. But and then like I have to give this game in particular credit, like for like not like doing its kind of its own thing. Like Boom Bang just fucking tried copying Mario Party with like the whole board thing, and it's just like, yeah, it was terrible. I mean, it didn't help that game's case. It was also on the DS, but we're kind of getting off track here. The point is, like, Bash kind of did its own thing. Like, you still had the whole warp room set up from Crash 2 and 3. And you had, like, other challenges as well. Like, you had gems and crystal challenges was sort of, like... Well, crystals in particular, I feel like they sort of changed things up a little bit. And you had relics, which was sort of just made things really, really, really hard. Especially platinum relics on like higher warps. But I feel like this game kind of had the same problem, except probably to a lesser extent that Crash Purple did, in where it sort of just reused a lot of mini games. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they like changed like the settings with like the mini games. Like for like later warps, they would reuse it, but like they would change the settings for it, and they would add like a new gimmick or two each time. Like for example, like for the first pogo level, it's just like basic, and then for example, you would have like in one of the later warps, you would have the desert one where like you would have Ripperoo like periodically coming in to like put TNTs and nitros and shoot missiles and stuff like that. So it's not like they're all 1-to-1 the same, but like I feel like they do kind of get pretty similar, you know? And especially if you're going through like the game in one sitting, which is something I would not recommend doing, but I'll get into that in a bit. But especially if you're doing that, then like you can get like a bit repetitive. And even like the last warp, I feel like actually did that like pretty well. Like I feel like they definitely got a bit more original with like the whole, you know, you had shit like Keg Kaboom, and I can't remember the name of the other one. You know, I feel like they introduced like a few new like medieval themed mini games like near the end there, and I feel like if they had a more consistent flow of introducing new mini games throughout the main game, like they would only introduce one new mini game type per warp room after the first one, and considering like how long some of these can take, like for example, I feel like especially with like the trophies, like you kind of basically just have to do the same thing 3 times. And like I feel like it would have been less tedious if you just win like once and then that's it, you know. Especially like the pogo ones, like that take like nearly like 4.5 to 5 minutes, whereas if you only had to do it once, it would have only taken like 1.5 minutes, you know, that kind of thing. And I think with this game, like, try to speedrun it. Like, speedrunning Bash is not a good idea. Um, like, I would not recommend that at all. I've tried, like, my PB in that is shit, and I don't know if I'll ever improve it. Despite it being, like, so bad. But it can be really painful to, like, either speedrun this game or just do a lot of things in one sitting. Because it can get kind of frustrating. Like, this is probably the hardest Crash game ever. I still haven't 200%ed it to this day. Like, it's really difficult. So, like, you will get frustrated pretty easily. Like, especially if you're playing on your own. And especially if you have to do everything optimally, then that just kind of makes things even worse if you're not being casual about it. And yeah, and it can also get repetitive, which is, like, made even worse if you play it for an extended period of time. So I feel like this game is definitely better played in bursts and not taken, like, too seriously. And also playing with friends, whether it be in 2-player, like the co-op mode, or like 3 or 4 players in its more dedicated multiplayer mode. I feel like that is where you get more enjoyment out of it personally. Right, aside from doing things by yourself. And the thing with, also another thing to consider with Bash is that I feel like the fact that, like, it is a party game, it's also, like, it's kind of finding an uphill battle to begin with, compared to, like, mainline entries of a series. It doesn't even, not even just Crash, just anything, like, you know, like Mario or Sonic or whatever. Like, I feel like spin-offs are kind of finding an uphill battle, but, well, I have to commend Bash for, like, what it did. I feel like if it had more original ideas, its AI wasn't, like, super random or harsh. Like, I feel like that's kind of a problem I have with Bash. And, well, and just everything I've talked about. But with that being said, I do like a lot of the mini games. Like, I do kind of have fun with them. And some of the challenges are, like, pretty fun too. Like some of the crystal challenges where, like, your handicaps. Like, it can be kind of, like, you know, have an interesting spin on things, you know? But shit like, just, like, relics are just, the relics are just kind of painful. Especially considering they make the AI even harder. And just, I don't know. I like a lot of aspects of Bash, but I also don't like a lot of aspects of Bash. And that is why I'm putting it here. Ahead of Crash Purple. Alright, now for my next game. Also, it had a pretty... Also, yeah, I kind of completely forgot about this. I'm going to be talking about Japanese, like, version differences a lot, so... yeah, be prepared for that, I guess. Bash had a pretty decent Japanese version. It added Fake Crash for multiplayer, using a cheat code, which is pretty cool. He even got his own, like, voice lines and everything, which is sort of awesome. Another thing with Bash is just some characters are way better than others, which sort of limits, like, your choice in terms of who you can really play. Like, I feel like for, like, majority of the minigames, I feel like Kong and Tiny are kind of, like, your best bet. With, like, a select few exceptions. Which is why they're, like, used in speedruns a lot, just because they're all around the best characters to use. Like, you have shit like Cortex and Brio, on the other hand, who are just terrible. in like almost like every mini game. Like especially the polar mini games, they're awful. And yeah, character balance was also another thing I had. Also, I really want to see the ancients one day. They were mentioned in this game. They were never really. They were mentioned once by Aku Aku in this game's honestly stupid plot. Like, I know a lot of games, especially like Lord Dallas, are gonna have stupid plots, but it's just. I feel like the problem with a lot of them is just that they're kind of just so contrived. In a sense, like Uka Uka and Aku Aku can't fight because the ancients won't allow it. The fucking ancients. They're brought up once, and we never hear or see of them again. In fact, we don't even see them, period. Not even in this game. They're just mentioned. And, like, I feel like they could have done more with that. Because that just kills my curiosity now. I kind of want to, like, at least see who the ancients are, but... yeah. They never brought up. And yeah, because of that, we get a whole game out of it. Literally, because those two can't fight, apparently, they just hire other people to fight for them. It's just like, what? This why? But anyways, yeah, another like thing with the characters I didn't get like at all is the fact that they put Tiny and Dingodile on Aku's side because Uka Uka had too many characters. So they put Tiny and fucking Tiny and Dingodile, of all people, on Aku's side, which doesn't make any sense. Like, Brio returns in this game for the first time since Crash 2. Like, you could have easily put him there on Aku's side instead, considering how the ending of Crash 2 played out. That would have made a lot more sense. And instead you probably could have put Rillaroo. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about Rillaroo. He was in this game. He was stupid and is kind of a meme nowadays. But he was hilarious, but also served like no purpose whatsoever. He didn't even appear in any Crash game after this until Nitro Field came out with the Winter Grand Prix, and yeah, he was a thing. They could have put him on the good side instead of Dingo. Like, that probably would have made more sense considering this was his first appearance, and like they hadn't really established anything with him yet. So I feel like those would have been better character choices to be on the good and evil side, but that's just my 2 cents on it. Yeah, its Japanese localization is pretty good, pretty alright. Its theme song is probably like, yeah, I'm gonna be ranking Crash Bandicoot theme songs as well. I feel like it's probably I want to say top 3, maybe top 2. I really like it, especially with the whole carnival aesthetic of it. I really like that. And also Dot Dash J. Dot Dash J, English. Fucking love that. A lot of people hate it. I love it. It makes no sense, especially the final boss has it. It's like it makes no sense and is the most out of place shit ever, but I love it. Unironically. You're not going to hear many people say that, by the way. This is kind of getting into shit opinion territory. But, yeah. All the character portraits were kind of hilarious too. Kind of had that Japanesey kind of vibe, which I like. The announcer was just over the top as well, and their dubs were pretty decent too. Except for Kong, who didn't get one. Literally the only character in the game not to have a Japanese dub. And that bugs me. Quite a bit. Also another cool thing, and this was the last game in the series to actually have FMVs, Japanese exclusive FMVs. It had two of them, and they were basically just about the history of the franchise in Japan at that point, which is, you know, I kind of like that. It was kind of a memorial touch more than anything. Also, the last thing about the Japanese version, it had what are they called? They had like these portraits of like the characters whenever you beat the game with any of them. And it technically had Torna in it. Yeah. Torna appeared in one of them. I think it was Crash's one. So that's actually pretty interesting, and I kind of like that. So yeah, it had a really good Japanese port. I felt, well, not port, like version or whatever. Which I'll give it like a lot of props for. But yeah. Anyways, next game, tag team. You know, I played a shit ton growing up. Like, if you, like, I know I played, like, bits and pieces of, like, other Crash games growing up, but if there was one game I probably spent the most time on, it'd be Tag Team. Like, I played this a shit ton. But if we're going to be looking at this from an objective standpoint, it's basically one half of the game I would like, I would say I really enjoy. And again, I haven't played this game in a while, which I should probably get around to doing that at some point. You know, just to form a better opinion on it. But considering how much I played of it as a kid, I remember a lot about this game. Yeah, one half of it was basically like platforming around an overworld, pretty expansive too. Like, it was quite big. Well, I'd say it's bigger than like Twins' overworld almost. And like, you know, it was pretty like cool just exploring the overworld, talking to people, and like just doing shit, you know, in there. On the other hand, you have the racing, which it's too broken and is like way too like straightforward and bland for what it was trying to do. Especially considering the two games before it, like CTR and CNK, were definitely way more in depth. And this just kind of just undid all of it. Like, the course designs are like in terms of locales, I feel like they were like pretty interesting, but in terms of like the actual like track design, they were way too basic. Like, a lot of it was just straight lines. I mean, you had these like unlockable shortcuts, which were like, I mean, kind of cool, but you know, aside from that and like a few like turns here and there, I feel like the actual track design was like really bland. And and the whole clashing thing was really broken. Like, I enjoyed it as a kid, probably because of that. But looking back, it was really broken. Like, you could clash with someone, or you just have them drive you the whole way, then fucking unclash at the end and basically just fucking win. And it's just... No, like, the whole, like, arena shooter... Not arena, but, like, the whole, like... shooting kind of like mechanic thing, it just didn't work for me personally. Um, and the thing that kind of tears me apart with this game is like half the game I really enjoy and half the game I don't. You know. So yeah, you had that. Also, you had these like mini games. They're like pretty fun. They're pretty alright to spend like a couple of minutes on them or something, you know. Just and they're a pretty alright inclusion. Like they weren't like forced on you or anything really. They're just sort of like additional stuff to do, you know. So, you know, I kind of, you know, those were alright for what they were. Um, like for example, the whole like bowling one was alright, and it was kind of interesting. Like for like, it wasn't just bowling for like 10 rounds straight. It was actually like you had to like dodge holes, and they would be in different places like each round or whatever. So that was pretty cool. And then you had the chicken shooting one, which is just kind of there, but it was alright to do like once. um. Now, the thing about this game is its humor. Now, it's way more kiddie, and I think it's shit that I loved as a kid but don't like now, and is almost just childish. But the thing is, I think that's what they were going for. They were going for a more kid-oriented demographic when they did this. But at the same time, I feel like they didn't need to do that because the other games prior kind of had a good balance of like fun, but also just not being like super kiddie, you know. And I don't think that was a direction that needed to be taken with this game. Like you had the whole chickens thing, and like just all the gags, which are basically just Crash dying and in really just weird ways, and it's just like I don't know. Also, like the fighting on the loading screen, I don't know, man. But and I could tell it was intentional, but I also don't think it was something that really needed to like change. You know, the humor. You know. Um. But yeah. You also had like stunt arenas, which were okay, I guess. Not much else to really say there. In fact, there isn't really much else to say about this game in general. Its Japanese version was, you know, I'll give it credit. It was the first one to have its Japanese model playable in game, which is fucking sick. I've yet to actually play it, but I want to do that at some point. And having that as default in the Japanese version and a cheat code in NTCU and PAL, like actually being able to play as Japanese Crash, just run around with him and everyone, was actually really cool. And that's like pretty good. So yeah, bonus points for that, I guess, which is why it kind of pains me to put it all the way down here. But I feel like also, but the disappointing thing is that, not counting Twins, since that game didn't have a dub for Crash at all, actually, this is the first game in the series to have Crash not have his Japanese dub, which is, you know, a little bit disappointing. You know, aside from that, it was basically all the typical Japanese stuff, the fanfare at the time, which, you know, ticked all the boxes, so. But I didn't do anything else really groundbreaking, so, you know, not much really else I can say in that regard. But concluding thoughts is just that it did some things right, but it also did a lot of things wrong. that a lot of people didn't like, mainly with the racing. And considering it's called Crash Tag Team Racing, I feel like that was a big misstep in the racing department. So anyways, next game is probably going to be Excess. His first outing on the GBA. What do I have to say about this? I enjoyed it, but like it was pure platforming. Well, mainly pure platforming for a lot of the adventure. And considering it was on a GBA, I feel like Vicarious Visions, and yes, this was their first Crash game actually for NST, but it did, it did a lot right. I feel like it didn't try to be anything more. It didn't try to like reinvent the wheel or anything, and it borrowed like almost all of its themes from like Crash 2 and 3, and I feel like a lot of the platforming I really did enjoy, and I feel like they didn't make it like too basic, and I feel like they kind of took in terms of like the ideas. In terms of platforming, I feel like they kind of took a lot of liberties and kind of took some risks. Like some of them paid off, some of them didn't. I feel like this game had a bit of screen crunch, which I mean is to be expected from a GBA game, but I feel like that did lead to like falling into a lot of bottomless pits and stuff like that, which is, it wasn't the best thing ever, and I feel like this game in particular is kind of a bit guilty of that. Also, the whole it was like with the Switch crate, like the exclamation mark iron crates, like there was a lot of those that would just troll you, which I don't know, didn't like those at all, especially in the bonus rounds. I'll give them props. They really tried with the bonus rounds. I feel like in Crash 2 and 3, and even to a lesser extent, like Twalk, I feel like they were sort of just pretty basic for the most part. And I'll commend the Vicarious Visions for making like more in-depth like bonus rounds, even if like on occasion they wouldn't work. I guess my only other main problem I have is I guess just I'm trying to think here, because there's not much to this game. I mean, it's the shortest Crash game ever. It only has 20 stages, and considering it's its first outing, I feel like that's acceptable. You know. The jetpack levels, they weren't even hard, they were just really tedious. And they just dragged on and on and on, and there's no way to speed them up. You basically just have to sit there just firing at shit that comes at you. And they just took way too long. I didn't like those. But I did enjoy a lot of the platforming, and I feel like I feel like the creative liberties they did take were for the most part the right ones. But there were a few things that they misstepped. Relics, on the other hand, I don't like in this game, because trying to be speedy in excess is sort of a pain in the ass because of its design and its inherent design. Also, just I feel like it didn't work, and I feel like that's why trying to run XS is sort of a bitch because there's a lot of like things you really need to like learn a lot, and I feel like it didn't mesh well, especially with certain stages where you'll just have to like wait on platforms, and if you try to speed things up, it just doesn't work. So I feel like relics in this game were sort of annoying, but considering it's its first outing on the GBA, I feel like it did a lot right, and I can cut some slack. Its Japanese version was pretty standard, but considering it's GBA, you know, it didn't really do anything radically different. It was going to have the Crash Bandicoot theme at one point, which I think got cut, which is a bit sad, but everything else like hits the mark in terms of the basics anyways. Now, next game. The first in great tier is actually Entranced. Now this game came like after it was a sequel to XS. Yeah, the Game Boy Advance kind of had its own like line of. It's like you had the console series, and then you had this series. It was like Crash Bandicoot 2, but it's like 2 on GBA, so just kind of that was interesting, I guess. But anyways, I feel like this game improved a lot on the first GBA title, and that is why I'm putting it in great, because I feel like its design was a bit more streamlined. I really enjoyed the gem shards, which you could find in basically every platforming stage. I want to say these games' biggest like downfalls were like its vehicle stages. I want to say I didn't really like them in Entrance. I mean, the Atmosphere was okay, but like, and that whole like water riding thing was sort of just. It was more just. It was just like. It wasn't like painful, but it wasn't really exciting either. It was sort of just there. The space levels are sort of just stupid. And the true final boss takes like 500 million years, so with entropy, so have fun with that if you ever want to go for full completion. I guess I'll get this out of the way. Apparently this game had multiplayer in like the Atmosphere stages where you could actually play as Megamix. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about Megamix and fucking XS. Yeah, basically, once you fully got everything, you got one final stage where you just run away from Megamix, and that's basically it. Yeah, and the GBA title is pretty lame. He just runs at you and then just fails to do so. It's just like, what's the fucking point? But yeah, you can actually play as him in like the Atmosphere, I think. I didn't know that until very recently. But yeah, this game had multiplayer, apparently, so that's the thing. If you have like a link cable, you could do that. But in terms of the actual game, getting a bit more on track here. I feel like there were less platforming levels. Like there was only like I want to say three or four themes, like outright themes, instead of like XS is like 4 or 5. But I feel like they fleshed out a lot of its core design, And I feel like its controls were kind of tweaked a little bit. And they just ironed out a few like control issues I had with XS, such as that whole thing where like if you like spin in midair, you just like get fucking launched to the ground after the spin ends, which is kind of annoying to deal with. So they fixed like a few of the control issues. I feel like, which is like noteworthy. And yeah, I feel like they made the level design a bit more interesting. Like, for example, I feel like the sewer levels in XS were kind of a bit just walk right, with the exception of like the bonus levels. But yeah, I feel like this is a lot more to do in each level, and I feel like I can commend it for that. This game kind of gets a bit difficult near its end, but I like all the additional like levels. I feel like the very hard ones. I feel like when you get all the gem shards. Yeah, I feel like those are like pretty good as well. But yeah, I think Entrance is just a lot more of a streamlined game, and for the most part, its gimmicks and structure is a lot better than XS. So that's why I'm going to rank it above it. One stupid thing, you had to get basically all the platinum relics to fully complete the game, which is like, fuck Christ. With the exception of one, you can get 1 gold apparently, which is like, what? But yeah, anyways. Which is, yeah, I don't know. I never got that. I made it like really like painful. Like it's like getting all of those, but yeah, I don't have much else to say about this game. It's pretty fun. It's not something I would ever speedrun. And I'll give this game in particular credit for not just reusing the same powers, like from Crash 3, like Twok and XS did. Like you got 2 brand new abilities. You got the rocket jump and the super slide. And the super slide in particular, like if you're really good at this game, you can like use that just to blaze through levels. So, but again, that's really hard to do. But and it's like they're not the most innovative things ever, but they're good additions. And I feel like that's kind of like innovating without going too far, and I'll give it credit for that. So, yeah. Also in the Japanese version, the requirements for like reaching the entrance were like a lot more strict. Like I feel like I think you needed like a lot more gems to even like do any percent, which is like kind of silly, but but anyways, that's a thing too. Aside from that, pretty standard Japanese conversion. Next, I'm gonna put console CNK. The thing with this game is kind of like hard to like talk that much about nowadays, because I feel like NF like almost completely eclipses this game, and in a way almost kind of makes it makes the original CNK kind of redundant. Like the only thing that this like the original CNK still has that isn't in Metro Field is its adventure mode, its cutscenes, and its theme song, which is an absolute fucking banger, by the way. I love that so much. It had a really good like main menu theme or whatever. which unfortunately my compliment of that doesn't really translate that much into like the rest of the game soundtrack, which is a shame. Like I feel like its soundtrack is good, but considering the standards that of the soundtrack that this series had before this game came out, I feel like it doesn't even compare. And I know that like again that's a really high bar to set. Like, I feel like Crash 1, like CTR and like Bash, like I forgot to talk about that, but Bash, I feel like the rest of that game's soundtrack was an absolute banger. I love so many songs in that game, like, and even Crash 2 and 3, like, and yeah, Twok was another one that had a great soundtrack. But then when this game came out, I just feel like it was really underwhelming, which was a bit of a disappointment, but oh well. It's not bad by any means, but it just doesn't live up to the absurd expectations that were set prior. So, yeah. Now, like, speaking of the cutscenes now, I feel like those were, like, really good. I feel like those were really well done, the FMVs in this game. Yeah, this is, like, the first game outside of Japan to actually have FMVs, like, and have them be used in the main game and not just as like a side thing, like a bonus content or whatever. And yeah, I feel like they were really well done. I feel like all the new characters, like all the bosses, like I feel like just watching them like in motion and stuff was pretty cool, and I feel like all the characters in this game, with like the possible exception of Krunk, who I feel like is, well, I like him. I feel like he's just a Papu clone, but I feel like the rest of the characters they were all really unique in like their personalities, and just seeing each of them like interact like in the cutscenes was like honestly really cool. Especially Velo. I feel like Velo, and especially considering the fact he's voiced by Steve Bloom, he's really intimidating in this game, and I liked that a lot considering like the premise of everything. Like I think Velo is like a really good character in particular, and just. But yeah, I really liked that aspect of this game. And it was a shame that they weren't playable and all the bosses weren't playable or unlockable races in the console version of this game, which is pretty disappointing. With the exception of real Velo, which you had to unlock not by beating his ghosts actually, which is what I used to think it was when I was a kid, but no, you have to fully complete adventure mode as both Team Cortex and Team Bandicoot, which was kind of interesting. But yeah, he was the only like playable racer like from that game aside from like Zem and Zam. I don't know. I feel like Zem and Zam were kind of just pointless, honestly. I feel like Zem and NF is kind of like fun to play as, and it's kind of cool, but in this game, it sort of just exists, I guess. It doesn't even appear in any of the cutscenes, really. Aside from like, I think the intro one, he like makes a cameo or something, but during like when Team Trance and Team Oxide are introduced. But yeah. Now in terms of the actual game, I really loved a lot of the track designs in this game. And I feel like they did a really good job with that. with the possible exception being the anti-gravity. I feel like, yes, it beat Mario Kart 8 to it, but I feel like that game did it a hell of a lot better. I feel like the anti-grav in this game was just really clunky, and you would just run into walls a lot of the time, and I don't know, it just didn't work. For me personally, in terms of the locales, I really enjoy a lot of them. Granted, some of them were kind of pretty similar to the track themes in CTR. Like, for example, Crash Course versus Inferno Island are pretty similar, but I feel like personally, especially in NF, but I feel like in this game even I feel like they did enough to have it be its own thing instead of just literally copying CTR, And while I feel like they could have done some more original stuff in terms of the themes, I feel like it's not as bad as people make it out to be. Now in terms of controls, it's definitely a lot clunky on the CTR. And a lot looser in terms of that sort of thing, so that was something that was pretty disappointing. But it's not the worst thing in the world. But when you compare it to CTR, it doesn't hold a candle, honestly. But despite all of that, it's still a really fun game. And the other mechanic this game had was teams or something. So you could use your team frenzy and just spam items for a certain amount of time, which I also don't think really worked either, because it's if you're just spamming items, your movement is just gonna go to shit, and considering having good movement is really what makes you good at these kind of games. I feel like having that just almost impedes you more than helps you. I mean, not like you're really going to need to use it anyways, but still, even if for whatever reason you did, I still feel like it doesn't really work. And yeah, not much else to say really. There isn't that much reason to play this game nowadays, because Nitro Fuel just does what this game did, and I feel like it did it a lot better for them than the rest part, aside from maybe having the worms and out of time missing. Just really minor shit like that. But it's still a relic of its time, and has divided a lot of people. But I still like it. It's definitely a downgrade, but there are some things that I do like about it. And especially, actually I will say this, the fact that its track count went down from CTR's 18 all the way to 13 was sort of just disappointing. You'd think on newer hardware you'd have more tracks to play with, but no, you only had 3 tracks in every hub instead of 4 in CTR, which is, I don't know, if that was definitely a bit disappointing. But oh, it's not the end of the world. I will say one thing I didn't really like was, fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah. Boss fights, the bosses kind of got their own weapons, which, I mean, I guess that was kind of interesting, but I feel like Yeah, basically. Okay, I'm just rambling now. I should like really focus. Yeah, the bosses got their own power ups, which I kind of wish you could use them honestly, but yeah, I feel like it was pretty similar to CTR, and I feel like the reason a lot of people don't like this game is because like it did, in a lot of ways, it kind of did feel like a downgrade from CTR, which was on like lesser powerful hardware, mind you. So I feel like that's what disappointed a lot of people. Like a lot of people just viewed this as like a shittier CTR basically, and um, and you know, in some aspects, I feel like it is, but I feel like it does enough right to warrant, you know, giving it a shot. You know, um, this is also the last game in the series actually to have not only Crash be voiced in Japan, but have a Japanese voice. I mean, but also to have a alternate um like theme song in Japan, and I feel like it's probably like it's not bad at all. I still like it. But in terms of the Japanese theme song, I feel like it is a step down from what we received previously. Um, and not helping matters is that like you can easily just you have to like wait on the title screen to like listen to it. Like it's something that can easily just be skipped. So yeah, that's that. Um, okay, next on my list is GBA version. Actually, there we go. Yeah, I feel like this game is honestly better than its console counterpart. I feel like its OST was a lot better. Its Japanese theme, it was a lot better, and it played on the fucking like full like title menu as opposed to just like the intro part. The rest of the OST, like I said, is just really great, and I feel like the GBA like sound chip honestly worked a lot better for some of these songs. Um, I feel like the controls were a lot tighter on the GBA, and the track designs, with the exception of Out of Time, I feel like were like they were definitely more basic because of limited hardware, but I feel like they worked really well. Um, and another thing this game has above the console version is that you can actually play as all the C&K bosses, including real Vila this time, and you can also play as Spyro. Um, and also, what was incredibly cool is the method of unlocking Fade Crash. In our time, you had to like, I found that pretty clever. Like you had to basically go out of the map and find him, which is kind of pretty cool. I mean, considering I am the world record holder in 101%, the most relevant category in this game, I will say that this game did do a lot of improvements. The load times are like instant, and that applies for all the GBA games actually, which I really liked. We're seeing K consoles loading times were pretty bad, honestly. And also, special shoutouts to cups in that game. Yeah, on the gem cups in 101, you only had to do one lap for each race in that, which props to that. Instead of having to do three all over again, you only had to do it. You only had to do one lap, so gonna give a shout outs to that. Although I fucking hated the final boss against Vila. It's like it's like one of the cheapest things ever. Like, and unless like you get him over the gap with like an item and make him force him to like do like an entire part of the section again. Like, he will rubber band like a motherfucker, and it's just painful to deal with because it feels like a crapshoot as to like whether you'll win, because not to mention Velo is the first boss in like Crash racing history in both console and handheld to like fire items forward. Like, you can fire bombs forward even if you're ahead of him, and yeah, that will just send you. Not to mention, you just spam stuff constantly, and it's just a nightmare. The final track itself is pretty good, but especially with the whole portals, but like gimmick. But I did not like the fight itself. It was bullshit. And this is going with somebody who like runs the game as well, so you know. Aside from that, yeah, a pretty good GBA game. It's honestly my favorite GBA game in the whole series, and I feel like it doesn't get enough appreciation from a lot of people, because I feel like a lot of people just write it off as like, oh, a racing game on the GBA is going to be shit, but no, really, I really like this one. Next up, I'm going to put this is a tough one. I'm gonna put Twins. There. And this will be my final game in the great tier. This is where a lot of changes in the franchise started happening. And I feel like this game did it right. You know, it didn't go too overboard with its changes. This is the first semi-open world game in the series, and it sort of ditched the whole Warframe formula from the previous games. It was also really rushed and had a shit ton of content. Which, you know, and this basically this game has the whole mentality of it could have been so much better, and you know it could have been, but for what it was, you know, I like Twins. Despite it being really unpolished and having a lot of cut content, yeah, this game is pretty buggy. It's probably like the glitchiest like game in the series. And that is demonstrated by runs of this game. Like, you can sequence break the shit out of this game because there are some parts that clearly weren't play tested, and and you know, I feel like that kind of does hinder this game a little bit, because I feel like if we ignore that aspect of it and judge based on what else we have in this game and what it has to offer, I feel like it does a lot of things right. I feel like the character development between like Crash and Cortex, I feel like I really enjoy like that dynamic duo kind of aspect that they were going for here. I like Nina as a character. I feel like this is her first introduction to the series, and you know, I like her as a character, especially in this game. You know, like the comedy, I feel like it didn't go too far. I feel like, you know, it became more lighthearted, yes, than the previous games, but you know, it didn't pull like a tag team and go, you know, too far into like just becoming like a joke, you know. I feel like this game had a lot of humor that like, you know, that like adults would enjoy, you know, and this game honestly makes me like laugh, like to this day. Like, there's a lot of things that I still find funny, like, and with its unskippable cutscenes, which is silly, by the way. I never liked that you couldn't skip cutscenes. And to make matters worse, there are some places like where if you die, you spawn like right like in front of like a cutscene trigger, and you have to watch that cutscene again, which is baffling because the beta of this game actually has skippable cutscenes. So I don't know why the fuck um this game doesn't have skippable cutscenes. Like um and like that those and while I do find it funny, like I love like the cutscenes in this game, I feel like having to watch them over and over again, it's just painful. With the exception of the FMVs, like there was like a few of those sprinkled throughout the game. Those were skippable, but the in-game cutscenes weren't. So consistency, I guess. Yeah, I like. Um, I I do kind of like the evil twins actually, and like the new cast of characters that this game brought. You know, like I like the whole like one of the birds was like dumb, and like one of them was like the smarter one with Victor and Maurice. Um, Matt and Amberly was like pretty interesting. And like having the old origin story of like Cortex in that part of the game was kind of interesting. Um, and Evil Crash, despite not appearing that much, is it's an interesting concept that could have been more developed, but as a character, he's alright. He's alright. Um, and even like minor characters like Rusty Walrus and like Farmer Ernest, like they're so memorable despite only appearing like for not very long at all. Like Farmer Ernest like appears and then gets shot by Cortex's laser ray in the time span of like 15 seconds, but his like the quotes in this game are so memorable. Like and the characters, I feel like this game is a really memorable game. Like and I feel like this is like the one game where they absolutely excel in that department. And I don't think any other game has that matched yet in terms of like its personality. Um, and yeah, like I said earlier, this is like the first game to like deviate in terms of like its formula and started to like. I feel like this is a game where like they started to like really experiment with like new ideas and concepts, and that also applies to like the gameplay. Um, so yeah, they tried like the whole like semi-open world thing, and I feel like it actually worked out pretty well for what it was. You had like a lot of side areas that you can go into to get like gems, which this time you just find them lying around, you just collect them instead of having to break all the boxes in like a level. That's not really a thing. In fact, boxes in this game don't really serve that much of a purpose aside from getting extra lives, basically, and like getting Akaku, who is fucking worthless in this game. Like Jesus Christ, he barely does anything. Like he had such a downgrade from the previous games. It was borderline ridiculous. But in terms of like the basic crates, I feel like they didn't serve much purpose. But they were still fun to like break anyways, assuming you're being casual about the game. And yeah, I feel like areas like the Academy of Evil, like the 10th dimension and all that, were like really unique and fun places to like travel around. And yeah, despite the game being buggy, I feel like it did a lot of things right, which is why like people are clamoring for like either like a Twins 2 or like a Twinsanity with like remake, but with like all its cut content included. And Um, I wouldn't be like super objected to that, but at the same time, I do want to see this series move forward instead of be stuck in the past with like remakes. So that's my personal stance on that. It wouldn't be the worst idea ever, and it would be really interesting to see like Gone a Bit Coco and stuff be playable, but I feel like we need to move on. Despite Twins being a great game in my eyes. Yeah, its Japanese version was pretty. It was alright. Its font kind of got a bit of a downgrade, but everything else is pretty like standard. You had the standard like bombs and TNTs, text, all that kind of stuff. Yada yada yada. Its dub was pretty okay as well. So there's that, I guess. Alright. Now, for the games I'm going to put in top tier. Actually, you know what? Crash 3. This is a really tough one. I don't know whether I want to put it on great, like the top of great, or to put it in top tier. You know what? I'm going to put it here just because I don't want too many games in top tier. Oh my god. Of course my mom's yelling at me. Well, not at me, but yelling. Hopefully she turns it down a bit soon. But anyways, yeah, I'm going to put that here, but you could also put it at, like, low top tier if you really wanted to. It's sort of interchangeable. I feel like this whole list is sort of interchangeable with like a few exceptions. Cough cough boom bang. But yeah. Crash 3. The third game in the series is often going to be a really tough one because if you go too overboard with ideas, then it can lead to be a mess of a game. And, well, I don't think Crash 3 did that at all. I feel like the ratio between, like the levels in, like, platforming versus the levels that are in, like, in vehicles or whatever, I feel like, fuck, I'm getting distracted now. Oh my god, give me a second. Alright. Anyways, what was that? Crash 3. Now, oh my god. It's really hard for me to, like, judge this game. Because there's a lot of things I like about it, and a lot of things I don't. Motorcycle levels, I don't like them. Period. They're just shit. Especially stuff like Road Crash. Like, that can just be painful. And yeah, I feel like the ratio is basically just half platforming, half vehicles, which I feel like was definitely a bit, too much. And I feel like the vehicles in this game were just okay. The swimming was mediocre. Really, I wasn't the biggest fan. Granted, there was only 2 of them the whole game, so... I mean, they're all right, but they weren't great. Jet ski, a lot of people hate it. In the original, I actually kind of enjoy it. The only problem with it is that sometimes you can miss boxes on ramps because of the waves, which that can get kind of annoying. But aside from that, I really enjoyed them. I think it's because of its controls that really help with it. And once you learn how to U-turn with it, I feel like it becomes a lot better once you figure that out. Um, and then we have trying to figure out what other vehicle levels there are. Well, I guess we'll go over the platforming levels. Um, I want to say they're a bit of a downgrade from the past two games, honestly. In terms of like, well, in terms of creativity, I feel like they would go a lot better with that. But in terms of just pure, like, um, like difficulty and intricacy, I feel like they kind of tone things down a little bit. I feel like this game can be a bit too easy. Um, and like like especially near the end of the game when this is the first game to introduce the power ups. So stuff like super body slam, the double jump, the um, death knife spin, the bazooka, and the running shoes. Uh like once you get death knife spin, like you can cheese like a lot of this game and its challenges, and it almost breaks this game in half, and that issue becomes amplified when you get the bazooka. Like if you want to be like journalist here, you can basically just bazooka everything in sight and not have to really try to do much of really anything aside from really basic platforming at that point, because you can just cheese everything, and I feel like this game can be a bit unbalanced in that regard. Um, Now, I really do enjoy the time travel aspect of this game, and I feel like because of that, we got really like interesting areas to explore, such as like the future levels and like the medieval and like the Arabian and Egyptian levels and all that kind of stuff. I feel like we got really like wacky and out of this world like levels to play, and I'll give them like a lot of bonus points for that because it helps differentiate this game from the first two a lot, and I feel like using that time travel device, while like cliche, also did wonders for the game as well. So this is the first game where we got like a lot of major character introductions, such as Uka Uka, and some like more plot devices, such as like entropy and this whole like time twister machine, which is like this game's main like warp room, and um, we also got you know a more. I think the fact that I think Uka Uka is like was a really good character in this game because of the way like he kind of just called out Cortex and it was bullshit. I don't know, I just kind of like that honestly, and his more like intimidating and threatening nature. You know, in this game, I feel like it made him a really good character. But but yeah. I feel like the new like crate types we got like were pretty cool. Like we got the infamous iron checkpoint crate. uh we've got slot crates, which were kind of underutilized in this game, but they're a pretty cool addition. And just kind of stuff like that were like kind of introduced in this game. And while I will admit the double jump can be a bit overpowered, not as badly as super. No, not as bad as like the Death Note spin or the Bazooka, but and while it can be a bit broken, I feel like it kind of did help with the level design a little bit, especially in the death routes. Um, where I feel like, yeah, this is the second game in the series to have death routes, and yeah, most of them were good. But it's just my opinion. There's not really much else I can really say. I mean, this was a game to introduce relics. And they were required for completion, which you're going to be. I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I feel like they're artificial and make the game longer for the sake of it. But at the same time, that can be fun to like time trial, even though I personally don't really bother. So, you've got two different camps, and I'm sort of in the middle when it comes to my opinion on relics. Not only in this game, but just as a concept in general for the rest of the series going forward. Baby T was kind of cool, admittedly. It was kind of very rarely used, but it was fun just to like smash through everything. And I also liked doing that glitch in Dynamite where you can just bring him all the way to the end of the level, which was kind of fun to do. Speed wise, I feel like NSJ's while slower than NSSing in Crash 2, I feel like it's a lot more comfortable, and I feel like it is a bit easier in terms of movement. Just because of like how you can like control where you like land most of the time, as opposed to NSSing where you have to like, if you're going to be doing it like close to a pitch, like you have to definitely be a bit more confident in that game. Now, I feel like for the trilogy, the Japanese version of this game, it didn't have too many changes. Like the double header enemies, like they only have one head, which is kind of hilarious. But it didn't do too much. I feel like this is kind of the game where like, well, this kind of followed Crash 2's trend, where like gameplay differences weren't as major. We had mask hints, which is definitely hit or miss on the community. I feel like if we had an option to like turn them off, I like them personally, but I feel like if you had an option to turn them off, I feel like, and you didn't have to wait like 2 seconds for them to skip them during runs. I mean, it's not really optional for Jay anyways, but I feel like if you could skip them, I feel like the people who would hate them would at least have that option, instead of having them mandatory for each playthrough. But they are kind of like a cool concept, regardless, and following on from Crash 2's tradition, they were fully voiced. And technically Aku Aku had a voice in Crash 2 in J before Crash 3 did All Rise, so yeah, fun fact, I guess. There's probably a lot of things I could... Well, actually, no. There's probably a couple of things I might be forgetting about Crash 3, but... Overall, I enjoy it, but... I feel like... I think the vehicles became a bit too much. And I know I feel like a lot of people complain about that with Talk, but I feel like Talk honestly did a better job with that. Just because, like there were 4 jet ski levels in this game, and 4 motorcycle levels. And also, I forgot to talk about the plane levels. I don't like those either. um, I don't know. I just don't like them, especially Mad Bombers. Is just a bit of a nightmare, especially when you don't know what you're doing. And I feel like those kind of that could have been like relegated to like a mini game or something instead of being like full on level, instead of like having those flight levels be full on levels. I feel like that would have been a better solution. But yeah, um, its soundtrack was, it was pretty good. Um, I wouldn't say it was amazing, but I feel like Crash 2 and 3 have like good soundtracks, but I feel like they're slightly below like the standard of Crash 1, CTR, Bash and Twok, in my opinion. So, but it was still like fun to listen to, especially like in runs, considering that's all you hear since you turn SFX off. So that's kind of a good thing, because if we had a bad soundtrack, then that would be doubly painful. um. Now the boss fights in this game, I feel like, were a slight step up from Crash 2 and 1's, but they weren't anything super spectacular, except for engine. Despite it being like a plane E, it wasn't really a plane, it was more like, I don't even know what to call it, a spaceship. Um, like I really liked Engine's fight. Chubby's fight was alright. Cortex's fight was kind of just fair. It's not like Crash 2 tier, but I'll get to that when I cover that game. But it was sort of just underwhelming, kind of dragged on a little bit. Digger Dolls you could fucking cheese. Like, literally. Like, and Tiny's were just, yeah. But, speaking of Coco, yeah, you fought, Engine as Coco, and this was her first playable, like, appearance. She was only playable in vehicle levels, mainly the Great Wall of China Tiger levels. Which also, this game also had the introduction of Pura as a character. Um, and those were, I liked the Tiger levels in this game. Not particularly the music, I feel like it was kind of bleh, but the levels were fun enough. Kind of annoying to, like, do, like, 105 with, especially optimally, it can kind of be a bit of a nightmare, but especially with stuff like Cuddle Skip, it can be a bit tough to get down, but aside from that, I like those levels too. And I feel like if Crash was in like platforming levels in this game, as opposed to like Twok, I feel like that would have been a better idea. But again, that's just me. This game's Japanese version also had Pocket Station support, which I've never actually tried because I don't own a Pocket Station. So, I've heard that the Pocket Station is region free, so I should give that a shot if I can figure it out. I don't think it's going to be a mind blower or anything, but it is kind of interesting to note regardless. Now this game had 5 bonus FMVs in its Japanese version, which you got 1 for beating each boss actually, which is kind of cool, and I like the unlocking system for that. I mean, the final one you still had to enter in, you still had to like do the process of booting up the game, holding in a specific like button sequence, watch the video, and then just reboot the game, which I felt like was kind of silly, but the others you could just go to the menu and watch, and I found them really funny. Like they were just small skits, but for the most part. But you also get to see Coco murder Crash. Yeah, he literally just blows him up. So, you know, if you want to see that, then this is your opportunity. With their Japanese designs, mind you, which is, yeah, just the icing on the cake with that one. I feel like the Naughty Dog games had a really good Japanese dub, actually, in particular. But that's just my view on that. Yeah, that's about it. Also, shoutouts to the final bonus clip in J Crash 3 showing my hometown. Well, not town, my home city, so yeah. Go Australia, I guess. Now I'm gonna cover the next game. That will be first game in top tier. It's gonna be NST. The return to remasters. Well, not the return to remasters. Well, just Crash's return in general after Mind Over Mutant. And the first, like, console Crash game in, like, almost 10 years. Or close to 10 years. At the point of this game's release. I know I've been saying this a lot throughout this video, but it did a lot right, did a lot wrong. And, I guess I'll just cover each game in this trilogy individually, because I had Crash 1, 2, and 3 fully remastered. But, yeah, I remember, like, being really excited for this when it was first announced. I remember I actually had a panic attack at one point. Well, not a panic attack, but, like, I got kind of worried because they announced the Skylanders game, which I'm also not covering on this list and don't know anything. Well, not the Skylanders game, like the Crash portion of, like, the Skylanders. Like, I can't remember what game he featured in, but it was one of them. And I haven't played it yet, so I don't have any opinion on that. But, yeah, they announced that, and I thought that's what we were getting, because when I watched the E3 announcement of the trilogy, I was actually at school, and I wasn't really watching, because I was like, you know, I didn't really have a chance to really, like, watch E3 until I was, like, during lunch. And then as soon as I tuned into, the whole, like, presentation, like, the first thing I just saw was the whole, like, Skylanders and Crash being thing, and I thought, I was like, oh yeah, I was, like, really disappointed, and I missed the segment beforehand where they announced the NST, basically. Yeah, the NST English, but, yeah, that's just kind of memory I have. And then just thinking the whole night, oh, great, Crash is truly dead now, until I kind of actually felt like doing research and, realizing that this game was coming out, and then I was super hyped. And I remember just waiting for this to come out. I was so excited. I was on, like, music, coming back from music camp the day this came out on PS4, actually. As this used to be PS4 exclusive before it went multi-platform a year later, but, yeah. And then I remember playing it and honestly having a blast. Obviously, like, it took a while to get used to because it was brand new, but at the time, but still, just this game brings back a lot of memories, like, specifically up until its release. This and NF are two games where I have memories leading up to the game's release, so I will always cherish that, despite the painful wait. And, just going on, like, the subreddit and just all those things, just seeing people talking about it and everything, just having this type, like, the community of it, I don't know. I always love that. But anyways, the actual game itself. I was just going to start with Crash 1, which I feel is by far the best, like, the most well-made out of the three games here. And I don't really know how to, like, word this, basically. But Crash 1, from what I can tell, I feel like it had the most development time put into it. And I feel like it shows because I feel like it's just more polished overall, and 2 and especially 3. But yeah, trying to articulate my thoughts on this game in particular is pretty hard because I've got a lot of mixed feelings about it. Mainly 3, but I feel like 1 was really strong. It didn't have zigzagging, but I don't think it really needed it because if we're talking about the speedrun here for a second, I haven't done much NST runs because of the lower mover being the lower mover, but from what I have done, I feel like it does enough to stand out on its own and run it over like Crash 1. It has its own tricks and its own kind of like movement, which you could argue is more basic, but I feel like it works out because of this game's design. And yeah, basically, I really like Crash 1 NST. I feel like the graphics are superb for the remaster, especially on PC, and I like that they added Stormy Ascent and the brand new level that they made, Future Tense, which, despite crashing on PC a lot, which they still haven't fixed, by the way, and I don't even know if they physically can fix, which is kind of silly. They shouldn't have released it like that. But anyways, that's a tangent for another time. But the fact that the brand new level in Crash 3 was so like sophisticated and worked out really well. In my opinion, it kind of makes me want to see more of those like brand new levels, honestly, in like a new game, which, well, hopefully like a proper console Crash game will be announced, probably for the PS5 or whatever at some point. But yeah, just seeing like stuff on Future Tense, like I feel like that was a really good level. I feel like the only problem I guess I had with it was that I feel like there were a few. I feel like it relied a bit too much on bazooka usage, but aside from that, yeah, I really liked Future Tense, and I think it was a really good level in that game. And back to Crash 1 with Stormy Ascent, I like that they brought that level back as a homage for it being cut in the original game. And yeah, it's like the longest level in the game, but I feel like it's a really well designed level of in itself, with the exception of that one cycle in NST, which admittedly isn't the greatest. But aside from that, it's hard, but it's fair. And the brand new bonus round, which was developed for Stormy Ascent, since the original it didn't function in the original, even if you like modded it in the original Crash 1. Yeah, I feel like the brand new bonus round is a testament to like really like good design. I didn't like it at first, but it really grew on me, and yeah, it really just makes me want to see more. Honestly, just what little new content we got in this game was really well done, and that is something I will commend NST for. Now for Crash 1 itself, we'll just talk about the OST. I didn't like it. The remastered OST, and this applies to NF's remastered OST as well. No, I didn't like it for the most part. With like the possible exception of Great Gate and Toxic Waste, those are like two tracks that had pretty good remastered versions. But everything else, I didn't like it. And unfortunately, in this game, there's no option to listen to the original music, so you basically have to listen to it, which I don't know. I didn't like it. I've said that like 3 times, but yeah, I think you get the idea by now. Now, I think the one problem I have with NST 1 is that I think the ledges, they could have definitely been a bit more lenient. Like the whole getting pushed off ledges thing was, I don't know, that was a bit stupid. I never really liked that, but I feel like the level design was really great. Obviously it's just borrowed from Crash 1, but yeah, I feel like it was still as good as it was back in OG. The rest of the physics, I felt like were really good once you got used to them and, adapted. Which I feel like is really important to do with NST, because if you can't adapt, then you're going to have a really hard time. And, basically, yeah, everything, I feel like a lot of the things that, I feel like the saving system's, like, a lot better and more streamlined in this game. Which in Crash 1, it was sort of, like, iffy a little bit. So they made it so it just auto-saves after every level. Or you can manually save if you feel like doing that. With gems, with the exception of color gems, you can get all the gems with it, and you can still, like, die in levels. And I feel like that was really clever with the whole, like, color gems. Having to do them all in one life still, I feel like that was a really, like, clever use of that thing from, like, OG Crash 1, and it kind of gave them a bit more of a purpose than just the clear gems, so I don't know, I really liked that personally. And then, yeah, they added relics to Crash 1. I'm gonna be honest, they don't really work that well. And this is coming from a speedrunner, and I'm saying this, I just feel like they don't work particularly well, especially with the crate placements and the time crash. I feel like it's not the best game to put relics into. And yeah, but I feel like I'll get more into, like, actual, like, Crash 1 once I put that game on it. And while I like OG more, I just really like NST, and I appreciate what improvements it did make. NST 2. This is sort of just, it's okay. That's my opinion on NST 2. It's okay. I feel like it can be a bit buggy at times, honestly. Hop sliding is sort of an interesting thing, and this is why it's the 3 as well, before you get DTS, but I feel like hop sliding in certain levels can kind of be a bit difficult, especially, like, border levels can kind of be a bit of a nightmare. At least for me, anyways. I'm not really an NST 2 runner, so you can just ignore that shitty opinion, but yeah. Um, in terms of the actual like game, I feel like Lex Lang as Cortex here is a bit hit or miss. I feel like it doesn't mesh very well with like Clancy Brown Cortex's lines from the original trilogy. I feel like I feel like for the most part it didn't really work. Um, it's not bad, but I feel like considering like the more serious nature of the trilogy, um, and like trying to put the more comical Lex Lang Cortex into it, I feel like it clashed a little bit. Um, what else is there to really like cover into? Um, I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion other than it's okay, and I guess I could just segue that into. There's probably a lot of stuff that I'm just forgetting off the top of my head right now, but this video is already going to be obnoxiously long, so let's just move on to Crash 3 NST, which I'm not the biggest fan, honestly. The jet ski is one of the worst things in existence in this game. Like, holy shit. They removed the U-turning. I don't think people understand how bad that was. And the turning arc of the jet ski in general is just, God, is awful. I don't know how people defend that, quite honestly. It's like fucking all. The sub, was shit. The bike was even worse than it was in the original. So were the tiger levels. It was just really clunky, and the boost speed of like the fucking of Pura was just wasn't. It was too fast, and yes, too fast might sound kind of contradictory, but considering the original level design and how they're trying to combine the two, I feel like there are some things in NST that clash because of the original design and then trying to revamp it. And this is one of those cases. But the only two vehicles the only two like gimmick parts of NSC 3 I like are the swimming. I feel like that was an improvement over the original OG3, and the first two specifically, the first two playing levels. Well, they controlled a lot better. Rings of Power was fucking garbage, but Mad Ballers and Bye Bye Blimps. Well, my Mad Ballers specifically was better, so I'll give it credit for that. And also I'll give a shout out to Area 51 for not being pitch fucking black. So they can actually see like 2 feet in front of you. So, at least it's that. But aside from that, basically my critique of NST3's platforming is kind of similar to Crash 3's, which I already covered, so I'm not going to go into detail about that again. I mean, I'll give them credit for having them not fuck up the jump entirely. Whereas in Crash 3, it carried your momentum even after you let go of the analog stick or D-pad. At least NST3 and this applies to the whole trilogy. At least that's not a thing. So, think fucking I don't know. Kind of forgot to mention that earlier. I don't know why Crash 3 took kind of steps backwards in terms of his like platforming control. When I feel like Crash 2 kind of perfected it. Um, but yeah, at least NSA3 doesn't do that. And I feel like his control in 2 and 3 is, it's loose, but it's a bit loose, but like I feel like it's tight enough to the point where like it isn't really problematic in platforming stages. And I think it gets enough. I feel like it gets enough of a balance for it to like work. It's not like Crash 2 and 3 has like super tight platforming anyways, considering like with its move sets. So yeah. Um its Japanese version was of the entirety of NST was, yeah, this is kind of the death for Japanese. Not the death, but like, you know, there clearly wasn't as much effort put into it. Um, None of like the changes made in the originals like really carried over, aside from like, you know, like some of the dub and, just any text that was in NTSCs. Now we changed to Japanese. We're like, I don't know. That's really about it, which is a bit disappointing. And NF does a bit of an improvement over that, but it kind of sucks to see. But I think that's more just because of the time period we live in and the fact that Crash is now in Activision, so they barely have a Japanese branch anyway, so it's that too. But yeah, I liked NST. One, if I had to rank like just the games in NST, I'd go. I feel like it gets worse with each game. Honestly, I feel like it goes 1, 2, and 3. But yeah. So that's my really rough, non-detailed review on NST. You know what? Next game I'm gonna do is Twok. I feel like a lot of casuals would not put this up so high. And I feel like appreciation for Twok doesn't come from like casuals on the internet. It's either people who like really understand and have appreciation for Twok, either speedrunners, well, not speedrunners, but just people who are a part of Speed, or people who I've talked to in like real life about it seem to like Twok as well. But I don't know. I think what kind of bugs me about this is that a lot of people give Twok shit for like, and are kind of hypocritical because like people say like, oh, Twok, it's like too many vehicles, but it's just like Crash 3 had the same problem, and saying like big players saying like, oh, it's unoriginal and stuff like that, and it's just, I don't know. I don't see that as really valid, but whatever. Now, Twok, I feel like I'm putting this above Crash 3, honestly, because there are a lot of things I really liked about this game. Now, I feel like I really liked his control in this game. Despite it being looser, I feel like it worked with this game's design. Its OST was a fucking banger. Like, holy shit! A lot of the songs in this game was so good. This is going to be a recurring theme for the next few games I'm going to be talking about, except for maybe Crash 2. But yeah, I feel like it had more expensive levels than Crash 3 because of newer hardware. And And I'll give this game credit. Almost every level in this game had both an original music piece and also an original theme. This game doesn't really like recycle like themes, and that kind of helps with making every level unique, which I really like. Honestly, um, and yeah, I feel like this game does do a lot of things right that people don't give it credit for. I feel like the graphics, they're not the greatest, especially considering we're on PS2 now, but I don't know, I kind of have a spot for its art style, honestly. In a kind of weird way, I just kind of like it. And this game was the introduction of Crunch, as a bad guy in this game, until he turns good in the game's true ending. But yeah, I don't think Crunch was as developed as he was in future games, but at least we kind of like got his start here. Now, I feel like this game's vehicles, I honestly like prefer mostly. The atmosphere is like one of the best things to English. It's like one of the best things to be added to this like franchise. Honestly, I freaking love the atmosphere so much. The first plane is just okay. I feel like the plane levels in general are just sort of just okay in this game. Swimming controls, on the other hand, are so good. And we're not talking about the sub, we'll get to that in a second, but in terms of just crash swimming, they're so good. It's super tight, super easy to control, and when you you can actually get both invincibility and the death to no spin underwater, which are both, like, just spam the DTS underwater is so fun to do, especially in Coral Canyon, since, like, second section. But, yeah. The sub, on the other hand, fucking sucks. I hate that thing. It's like... Okay, I don't think it's as bad as, like, NST3's sub, but, like... God, it gets close. It's way too big. It moves way too slowly. And... you don't really have time to react to oncoming hazards because of how just clunky the thing is. Not to mention, like... if you want to, like, fire, you can't, like... you have to, like, make sure you don't, like, hold back. Like, hold down on the D-pad or analog stick. Otherwise you'll be facing forward and you can't fire, which is, like, stupid. And it takes forever to turn around, too. So, like, if you want to, like, quickly escape something, like, you can't really do that just because it takes forever to, like, change your mind. And by that time, you're, like, dead. Or you've taken damage or whatever. Yeah, I hate the sub in this game. And... the few vehicles Coco gets, like the snowboard and the fucking scooter of all things, they're okay. But I feel like this game definitely has a lot more variety than Crash 3 in general, not in terms of its vehicles, but also in terms of like its theming, its soundtrack, and its like whole level design. I feel like it's because it's on more next gen hardware now. I feel like this game's level design has gotten like really expansive, which you can clearly see from the first level of Arctic Antics, where the game has a shitload of boxes. Some people hate it, some people don't. I feel like I kind of like it. I feel like having more like sophisticated and intricate levels is honestly more pleasing to me, and I feel like TWOC does that a lot of the time, and it comes up with really like creative ways to like break boxes or do a certain challenge in a level or whatever, and that is something I'll always appreciate Twok for. It kind of just expands upon what Crash 3 did, and for the most part, I feel like it did things better. With the exception of hangrails, kind of an unrelated tangent, but why are they so slow? Like, seriously, I never got that. Crash 3, they got hangrails mostly right, aside from trying to attach onto them, because sometimes you just fucking fall down, which is dumb, but whatever. But at least the speed was fine. And then in this game, you just go at like fucking minus 10 billion miles an hour. Even if you have triple mass form, that doesn't increase it at all. So, yeah. Speaking of mass form, I feel like this game, well, it's nowhere near as bad as like Twins' mass form or anything, but it definitely got a bit of a downgrade in this game from the original trilogy, which was a bit disappointing. And a lot of people give shit for the fact that they changed the theme. It's like, you can't just expect them to recycle the same theme all the time. Like, you know, I actually like the theme, despite it not being as memorable, but, you know, like, come on, guys. But yeah, unfortunately, it only lasts for 10 seconds as opposed to 20. You don't really get a speed increase in any scenario, and you can't really, like break boxes from a distance anymore. You still have to, like... And well, you don't have to, like, spin or anything, but you can't just, like, be near a box and have it break for you. You still have to, like, touch it now. So, yeah. It has gone a bit of a downgrade, but I love the mask design in this game for whatever reason. I love Aku's, like, design. Which, for some reason. Now, the bosses in this game are sort of a mixed bag, to be generous. The fights, they're all with Crunch, basically just using one of the elementals. And no, don't mix up the Ancients with the elementals, they're two different things. Yeah, this game introduces the elementals, which are masks that Uka Uka summons to take over the world. Well, and they combine them into, like, Crunch to, like, make, like, a fucking superpower, basically. So, you know, an actual, like, coherent, but basic, but, like, sensical plot, like, holy shit, imagine. But, yeah. Anyways, Crunch is the elementals are, like, the main bosses in this game, and their fights are really hit or miss. The first fight in the Atmosphere sucks. It's the only time where using the Atmosphere is terrible. And I don't know. I know there's like a consistent strat for it, which I haven't learnt yet, but still, I don't know. Yeah, the second fight, which I actually kind of enjoy. Ironically, I feel like that and the final boss are actually the two best bosses in the game. In where you just have to platform your way to, like, kill him. And, boss fights 3 and 4 are okay. They're mainly just okay. I mean, the fourth boss in particular, I feel like is less okay because it takes forever. Like, you shoot him with that fucking plane, it does, like, 0.1% damage, like, per bullet. And so it just drags on. But, you know, at least he has a few different phases and stuff, so there's that. Now, what else can I say? It's basically just more of Crash 3 in what it did. It doesn't really, like... It expands upon what it did, but it doesn't, like, go overboard and do, like, what, like, Titans tier sort of shit. And for that, I can kind of commend that, you know? Not everything has to be, a reinvention of the wheel every time. And, you know, I do respect, like, I'll always respect Twok for that. The PS2 version of this Japanese counterpart also had the full Crash Bandicoot song, and which makes it my favorite of all time. Actually, it has the full uncompressed, like faster Crash Bandicoot theme, which the original 2 and 3 didn't have. They had kind of like the slower version, which I liked, mind you. And especially Crash 3's title screen, I liked his dance that he did on that. But basically, yeah, this has the best Crash Bandicoot theme song on the title screen. At least in the PS2 version. GameCube and Xbox doesn't even have that at all, which is a bit disappointing, but, you know. And I feel like mask hints are skippable and, like the next frame, which I kind of like. You know, it's just for speedrunning. If, like, you want to just quickly skip it, then that's great. It has all the standard stuff. You know, pretty solid dub. You know, like Nitro's having text, like bombs and DTs, that kind of stuff. Now the one thing with this game is its load times, actually. If you have greatest hits, I don't think they're that bad, honestly. I feel like people like really over exaggerate how bad they are. Like, they're not that bad. I mean, I guess I've been sort of just desensitized to them because of other games as well, but I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. But the great, like OG PS2 NTSC is kind of interesting because there's like a lot of like different like box layouts with that, which I've noticed. So there's a fun fact for you. Usually a lot of like added boxes actually, which kind of wish were in the other versions, but no. Overall, like Twok, I really enjoy the game. It's been a blast, like doing 106 races and stuff like that on it. So yeah. Next game I'm gonna do is Crash 2. Specifically casually. Because speed-wise, it's basically just a dropped inputs fucking festival. But if we're talking about this from a casual standpoint, I feel like this game just took what Crash 1 established and tweaked on a few things to make some parts of it a better experience. I mean, I feel like it's his control. I feel like this game honestly has the best control for Crash in like almost any game like ever in the series. It improved stuff like the save system, for example. You know, I feel like it had a lot of quality of life improvements that made it like a better technical experience from a technical standpoint, and I'll always commend it for that. Now I feel like Crash 2 kind of did something interesting in that it had an intro stage. Yeah, it had an intro stage. It wasn't very long, but you know, fun fact. I feel like this game honestly had the perfect balance between platforming versus like vehicle. They had like a few vehicles in this game, but they're really like very few and far in between. Like you had stuff like fucking jetpack, which I think it's not the greatest thing ever, but like, you know, considering something in 2 levels, like I think cut us some slack. I think because Crash has like a more like bigger moveset from the first game, since he's got the slide and Super Body Slam, I feel like this game really took advantage of that and made level designs that took advantage of that moveset, which like kind of just made it a bit more sophisticated than the first game. Um, I did like a lot of the themes as well, like like the space themes and the ruins themes are like probably two of my favorites from that game. Um, Now this game in particular kind of got a bit cryptic with full completion, as in stuff like falling into a bottomless pit to like reach an area and like just stuff like jumping on nitros to get like the purple gem. It's, yeah, I did get a bit cryptic, admittedly. And I remember I have a memory of this game actually. I think my brother was playing and I was watching him, and fuck, I can't remember. Yeah, and in Unbearable, he he got past like the fucking hole where the secret area is, and I told him to like go back and see if he could like make the jump. That was the reason. I didn't even know this existed at the time. I was just egging him on and like telling him to like get past, see if he could like make the huge ass gap by any means. And then he did it, and then he fell down, and then it turns out there was this whole like new area, and we were both just like, what the fuck? So that is always a memory I'll cherish with this game. But yeah, I feel like the additions, such as like bonus rounds that you can retry as many times as you want and have them interconnected into the level. I felt like this game was just a lot more connected to itself, and for that I'll always give it appreciation for that. And this was kind of the game that also established like a lot of staples that would carry on to future games. So, it kind of set things up for what future games would do. So, I always give it credit for that. So moving on. Also, its Japanese version of Crash 2 was kind of pretty solid. It had a bonus FMV, which is pretty cool, and it was the first game to have the Crash Bandicoot theme as well, and just that as well. And it was the first game to have mask hints from Marco actually voiced as well by him, which is cool. Also, I feel like the boss fights in this game are sort of a bit lame. Like, the Cortex boss fight is like the most pathetic thing ever. You literally just hold forward and then you just spin him 3 times and that's the whole fight. It's like, you end that shit in like fucking like 10 seconds. 10-15 seconds. It's like, really, it was so lame. Again, I feel like Engine kind of had the best fight here. We had to throw Wumpa Fruit at him in a mechanic that's only used for that fight, but I feel like it had a lot more depth to it than every other boss fight in that game. Especially Ripperoo and Crash 3. Jesus, it's really just, you sit there and just wait for him to fucking blow himself up 3 times. It's just boring. But yeah, anyways. CTR. OG. I do love this game. I really do. It was a kart racer that decimated like Mario Kart 64 at the time. And even like today. With like more recent entries, it's still somehow better than all of them. Except for debatably 8, but I still think 60 is better than that game as well. Um, this game just did so many things right. Like, uh, it was honestly like astonishing from a developer that like didn't even know how to like do racing games at the time. And they come out with probably the best racing game of all time. Well, until NF came out, but that's sort of a separate thing. It's honestly amazing, and like with no, I think it's like I feel like this was tied for me and Crash 1 for being my favorite game of all time in the series, but I feel like it's slightly weaker because of NF, but and there isn't too much reason to go back to the original. I feel like this game had super tight controls. It had the reserve system and had a shit ton of playable characters for the time, considering we were only 3 games in at this point. You could play as basically majority of the characters, aside from like Oxide, without Game Genie, which was a bit disappointing. Um, the power sliding mechanic is a great way to make it way more skill based. I feel like the item balancing, well, not the item balancing, but like I just liked the items in general. Um, the balance is going to be a bit better. I mean, you could get fucking like masks and orbs and clocks in second place in this game, which is like, Jesus, guys. Uh, it was too easy. Like, even on like very hard or whatever, like the hard mode above that was with the cheat code. Like, you're not really like losing races in this game. Especially once you've learned how this game works and all of its intricacies. I feel like this game, it takes a bit to learn, and I feel like that's something I really appreciate. It's got a lot of like depth for a kart racer of all things, and it's sort of, and this applies to NF too, which I'll get into later on, but you just learn the game and you get better and better at it once you understand how everything works. How to like be optimal with movement, like cutting corners better. Froggying, doing like speed ghosts and stuff like that. All those mechanics just intertwine like so well. And once you get everything like down pat, and I'm not even going to pretend like I'm very good at CTR 99, but once you like understand the foundations of all these intricacies and how they work, you're going to have a blast. You're going to have a great time. And this is also like it's a great multiplayer game too. Like, I've had a blast playing this, like with people like GDQ and all that. It's I really enjoy the soundtrack's awesome. It's an absolute banger. I like the modes. Like, I like, like adventure mode. I feel like the adventure mode and all the characterization that goes into that, whether it be Akaraku's like stiff mouth in the original, or whether it be the bosses talking shit. I feel like this game had a really good dub, like English dub, which made it that much better. I like how they've taken all the tracks majority of the tracks from like previous games, and just taken like themes and places from that, and effectively just made them into racetracks instead of like platforming levels. and they did it so seamlessly, and just connected all the hub worlds. Like in the adventure mode, just connected all the hub worlds into like one area without loading screens in between, which is something that C&K kind of failed to do. um, but yeah. Um, I like the sounds in general. Specifically, I really enjoy in this game. Like just the sound of your carts, the sound of getting boost, all that. It was just so satisfying to just listen to in this game, and um, but I feel like NF sort of overshadows this game just because. Well, that game has like blue fire, and I feel like it just kind of makes this game almost a bit redundant, which kind of makes it really. It's really hard for me to say that, but it kind of does, and I'll get into more detail why when I cover that game. But you know, C999 is a really like great game, and yeah, I love the track designs for the CTR tracks. I feel like they're designed really well and don't like punish you for like good play. I feel like they reward you. It's really rewarding for skilled players, um, which is something I'll give the CTR tracks appreciation for. And yeah, its Japanese version's actually pretty really good. The song, um, is really good. It's sort of different from the traditional Bandicoot theme, but I think it holds up on its own really well. This game also had like quite a bit to do. Like, um, you also had time. You also had stuff like time trials and like entropies and oxides ghosts, which are like I mean, they're like free once you know what you're doing, but you know, you've got a lot of content in this game. You've got like adventure mode, you've got single races, you've got cut races, you know, time trials. You've even got battle mode, which I mean is kind of a joke. And in this game, you can't even do a solo. You need like two people to do it. At least two people to like play battle mode, and it's sort of a meme. But I mean, it is there if you want to do something different, I guess. You've I feel like this game also has a lot of replay value with cheat codes of all things. I feel like there are more cheat codes in this than NF that actually work, but yeah, you can get like icy tracks like with ice physics the whole time, or like super turbo pads, you know, or like one lap races, or you know, just all this kind of wacky shit that just made it fun just to dick around in if you weren't running this game or whatever. I feel like this and NF are really great speed games just because of the nature of, you know, going faster in races. It already kind of helps with that mentality. So, and just once you get better and better at the tracks, I feel like that's when you get true enjoyment out of this. Second last game on the list here, Crash 1. This game holds a very special place in my heart. I just, aside from like tag team racing, this is probably like the game I played the most when I was a kid that wasn't tag team. Like I played this quite a bit. I remember like the boulder like scaring the shit out of me when I was that age, but yeah, effect this game, I just have so much appreciation for it. It is the beginning of a great franchise that, thanks to the new games, is getting a lot more appreciation now. Despite its save system and gem thing where you have to do the levels in one try to get the gem. It's definitely not a perfect game by any means. I mean, it is the first in the franchise, so holding that expectation is a bit unrealistic. But I really, really love the whole island aesthetic they were going for here instead of the whole warp room thing. And just the progression. It really felt like you were truly progressing to an end point with the theming of how you start on an island and then you get into more temple-y areas and then you get into Cortex's factory areas until you reach the top, and for any percent anyways you fight Cortex in his in the fucking sky on his blimp. I don't know how you get on the blimp, but that's still kind of cool regardless. I really like that. The original music for this game I really enjoy. I've said so many times in this video. This has been not at all coherent, but whatever. I feel like the levels. I feel like they've made such great levels out of a simple moveset of only being able to jump and spin. They've made such creative levels out of such a simple moveset, and I think that deserves to be commended. This is the first game. This is the first game to introduce majority of the sounds that are used for the trilogy, such as the sound of getting lives, Wampa fruit, breaking boxes, all that kind of stuff. I feel like the graphics for the first game of the series were great. Honestly eclipsing Mario 64 in that department as its rival. And yeah, I would spend more time talking about this game, but this video has been long enough as it is, and I really should probably wrap things up around soonish. But this game had probably the best Japanese version of any game in the series. And by best, I mean it had the most changes. So there's that. It didn't have its theme song yet. But it had a lot of mostly quality of life improvements. Just adding masks here and there. It started the whole iconic bomb on a TNT thing. But despite that, the music, and this is a really controversial opinion right here, but stuff like Kong and Brios and Pinstripes, Japanese music are absolute fucking bangers. And honestly, I feel like they're better than their NTSCU and PAL counterparts. Along with the Torna bonus theme, which you don't really hear that much because you never go in there and runs, but the theme for that I adore. And Cortex's theme is pretty alright as well. Apparently it was last minute, and I kind of wish it was remastered in ST, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But yeah, I think the thing I really like about one, OG one in particular, I feel like it's more serious tone and vibe to it, especially in the mid and end game. It's something that I'll always appreciate. It kind of had its atmosphere is second to none, and that is something that no other game has matched yet. So even stuff Slippery Climb's music, for example, and Temple Ruins' OST and everything like that, and just its atmospheric feel is something that I really like in one more than any other game. So we should probably get a move on. The final game, if you couldn't have guessed, is Nitro Fuel. Yep, this is not only my favorite Crash game of all time, actually, but it is surpassed one for being my favorite game of all time. And the fact that it does that, despite having the whole thing with collision problems and getting B-Noxed and the matchmaking problems and the invisible walls and all of that, despite it having all those problems and it still being my favorite game of all time, that is a testament to how quality everything else is in this game. This game it has so much content in it, it's actually ridiculous. And that's only going to continue to grow. I mean, we got news today, or this morning, my time, that the last Grand Prix, well, the next Grand Prix will be the last Grand Prix, but we're still going to be getting content even after that. We've just got so much work with. We've got over 50 characters, which is bigger than Mario Kart 8's roster, and all the characters, there is, with the exception of Baby Crash and Coco, and maybe Polar and Pura, and that one's debatable, but all the other characters, there's just so much of it, and none of it is really filler. They're all characters I really enjoy playing, and to see the return of so many Crash characters and just have them all in one game. It's I know a lot of people have said this, but it's the Smash Bros. Ultimate of Crash, really. And just seeing them all race characters that didn't have playable roles in the past or had minor roles, having them be fully drivable for the first time it's just awesome. And just all the content, whether it be with the skins or the wheels, paint jobs, all that kind of shit. I would say the karts, but you're going to be playing the classic kart majority of the time anyway, so I find hard to get a bit excited for that. But for the more casual people, you've got that as well, You've got a majority of the tag team racing karts in it. And with a bunch of original karts that are mainly themed on the Grand Prix, which have been themed events that have been taking place ever since this game's launch back in June. You've got all the tracks from CTR and C&K, and all the battle arenas from those games. Not like that really means much, but and you've got brand new tracks, a lot of them which are really solid, with probably the exception of Koala Carnival, and maybe the beginning of Prehistoric Playground, but you've just got so much content, and you've got brand new modes, you've got you got Ring Relay, which I think is a great addition to the game. You've got time trials, you've got cup races, which has got its own category, all cups, which I feel is honestly the better category in speed for this game. You got stuff like relic races, CTR tokens, you've got you've even got crystal challenges, and obviously the adventure mode for CTR is back in full force here. And it's basically just everything that CTR did for the most part, but improved. Its movement is pretty similar to that game, but it's also... But the introduction of Blue Fire and being able to keep it for the whole race just allows for such a ridiculous amount of speed. It's borderline ridiculous. And it's so satisfying to keep once you get it down. Um, and also you've got stuff like, oh god, I could just spend ages just gushing on this game. The fact that you could play online multiplayer in a I don't know, I just find that astounding, even if it's not perfect. And yeah, I love this game. It's awesome. Its Japanese version is okay, but I feel like it's good enough for what it is. And yeah, I'm honestly just gonna end it there. Um, I love this franchise and what it has done, and the shit ton of enjoyment I've got out of it, whether it be casual or via speed. And I will always like give it credit for that. So yeah, this is my ranking. Kind of a controversial list, but and I haven't gone to like super detail of like every game. I've gonna like have missed things obviously, but you know, with the exception of Boom Bang, I really enjoy like all these games here to some degree, and yeah. Thanks for watching.